Hello, friends, and welcome to the Noclip podcast, episode 136. Great job, Jeremy. He just drew a picture of Mario freehand for all of our wonderful watchers on YouTube. And for all you lovely listeners on the podcasts, Frank, say some nice words in a nice accent.
I'm so very conscious about doing any accents.
Oh, no, he's going to be cancelled. Frank,
No,
choose one within your wheelhouse then. You can go for what's available to you culturally.
Well, like
SoCal and Russia.
I think
British people is safe too.
I feel like I do a British
it's
accent
true.
all the time, and it comes off Australian. I've been obsessed with this Australian wrestler, Stephanie DeLander, and her whole gimmick is like, I'm the baddest bitch. That's right, I'm the baddest bitch in the world. So Steph DeLander.
That is I don't know, is that a Cockney accent it sounded a little
See,
bit?
that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. If I do English, it comes off Australian. If I do Australian, it comes off British.
How's your Irish accent?
Oh, man. It's...
Because mine's
wait.
terrible.
Mine's
know.
good, but I'm not willing to do it on this podcast.
Yeah, I don't want to offend Danny.
The only like accent that I regularly slip into is any word that has like an e sound as for a New Zealand accent. You just do it as an e sound. So like hexagon. Like instead of hexagon, you just say hexagon.
Did you say
so
New
like
Zealish? I
New
love
Zealish?
that.
Yeah.
Is it New Zealish? Is that what you say?
I don't know. It sounds right to me.
New Zealand.
You believed it?
I just loved it. And could you,
I think that's real.
how do you say New Zealish in a New Zealish accent? New Zealish. New
It
Zealish.
already sounds. You don't have to. It's auto accented.
It's terrific. Wow.
Yeah.
Is that a Flight of the Conchords kind of thing? Is that where you got that one from?
No, I just my friends and I were playing Gloomhaven, and it's a long turn-based game where you
Right.
play for hundreds of hours and watch people just like make tedious decisions, and so inevitably we slip into Irish accents and New Zealish accents and all sorts of bullshit. I just googled New Zealish. I don't know if that's a real thing.
It is now. I think we've just
Okay.
we've just broken it into the zeitgeist. Thank you all for listening to our terrific podcast here. If you didn't know it was terrific, welcome. You'll know it's terrific by the end. If you'd like to support us, you can do so at patreon.com/noclip. And we want to give a quick shout out to all of our amazing Battle Pass holders, including a new one, Battle Royale Games. That's the name.
Wow.
I guess the institution, the organization of Battle Royale games got together. Probably because you keep referring to BR games a lot, you know? You keep saying like, oh, they should make a BR game out of that every week, which is right. They should. They should keep making BR games. So obviously that's why they love us now. So thank you, Battle Royale Games. And also thank you to Arno, Richard Matherson, James Brown, Jason Drury, Mark Rojas, Ryan Cobb, Tucker Morgan, Crimson Cyclist, Sven Huster, Carson, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Andy Fegan, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Cameron Lett, Alex Sharp, Alex Goucher, George Sakotis, Jacob Godserve, James Andrew Adams, Tohir Tilyaev, and Ryson.
Hell yeah.
Ryson. Thank
That's a
you all.
good name.
Got some new names in there. Thank you very much. Do you guys have Ricicles?
No, is that a rice bicycle?
Oh my God, that's way better. A rice bicycle. No, it was, okay, so you call them Frosted Flakes here, right? We call them Frosties in Europe. So Frosties are to cornflakes as Ricicles were to Rice Krispies. Okay? So they were
just Rice Krispies, but a different name. Is that?
Rice Krispies with sugar on them.
Oh, they had sugar on them.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Like, like Frosties are basically cornflakes with like a little bit of sauce
Yeah.
there, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of glaze. That's what Ricicles were. They don't exist anymore. And they had like a snap, crackle, and pop sort of proxy, but they were like astronauts, like in space. Had a space aesthetic going on.
Was the idea that they had brought the normal Rice Krispies into space, and that in the vacuum of space they froze, and that the glaze was like an ice from the vacuum of how cold it is in space?
That makes sense because, like, something like that, or like these are like futuristic. Like, these aren't your mom's Rice Krispies. These are like future shit. Like, we figured out how to put sugar on cereal.
That's so futuristic to put sugar on cereal, dude.
Apparently, according to Wikipedia, on November 30th, 2017, Kellogg's announced they would discontinue Ricicles as part of a drive to reduce sugar in children's cereals. So I wonder if the surface area of a Ricicle was such that there was just so much more sugar, right? Because like a cornflake's pretty big, but a Rice Krispie is like pretty small. So if you're covering every single one of those in sugar, that's probably quite a lot. Also in Mexico, apparently it was called Rockin' Rice, which is pretty cool.
I like that way better. I have to give a shout out to the long lineage of Ricicles mascots. Ricicles mascot was the astronaut Captain Rick, who replaced Henry's cat, who replaced Tony Jr. in the 1980s, and Noddy in the 1960s.
Wait, Noddy? Like the fucking little
I know DDY.
Toy Town Noddy? Like he looks like a puppet?
English character, first appeared in a book series published in between the 40s and 60s. Yeah, he's like a little cop.
Yeah, Noddy. Wait.
Or no, he's driving the car. I think he's driving the car. He's getting pulled over in this image.
Yeah, Noddy was like, he lived in Toy Town. Did you? Oh, you guys didn't have Noddy. Man, I used to watch Noddy as a baby. Noddy's best friend was a guy called Big Ears, who was just like a, what do you call those?
Oh, he's a gnome. He's a garden gnome. I see him right here.
And there was like a racist character in this show. There was a gollywog in the show. Do you know what that is?
Jesus.
It's like this. I had a friend who actually, weirdly enough, she's like an actual. But she writes books for a living. I don't know how anyone figures that one out, but she managed to do it. But when we were working together, she was in college and she did like a whole like master's or book thing about racist toys, I guess, was like the thing that she, and it had pictures and shit in it, and it was the amount of racist toys was like, and how like all over how like pervasive they were, or everywhere they were, was wild to me. But this was all shit in like the 1920s and 30s and 40s, right? But like in the 1990s, there was this TV show called Noddy, and they had a character called the Gollywog. And the Gollywog is like, WOG is basically like a racist term in the UK. But that was the name of a, basically like a sort of, what do you guys call it in all the Jim Crow stuff, or like a minstrel? Is that what it's called? So It was kind of like that, but it was like a doll. So like a little black child doll, basically, and that's what it was called.
Christ.
Yeah, and there was straight up one of these in Toy Town. Like that's how sort of, I guess ignorant of racism they were. They were just blissfully ignorant, like la 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 la. And then suddenly that character was gone, and I was like, oh, what happened? And then it was like, oh, that was racist. And like I remember in Ireland we had like an ice cream that had that face on it, like literally was chocolate and vanilla. Yeah.
Okay, even in an age where cultural standards had not progressed enough for people to realize that was fucked up, I still am baffled by the person who was like, that was the theme for the ice cream that they thought people would want to buy. I just don't understand. Even if you thought that wasn't morally horrible, I don't understand why it's good branding nonetheless. It doesn't make any sense.
They were
to me.
literally called golly bars. Like that's what we used to.
Jesus
Yeah, it was
Christ.
like I think it was just vanilla actually. Am I crazy? I can't remember it. Like, but when I was a kid, we used to get these. They were fucking delicious. I didn't know it was like some 19th century racist caricature that they had decided to put on. Because like, ice creams was just anything. We had one called a freaky foot that was like, it looked like a foot. And you would lick the foot, which I
see. That's also that makes a little more sense.
Thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it was Quentin Tarantino's father, the entrepreneur behind that. Mr. Plod was the policeman in Toyland. I got a little lore on Mr. Plod.
Oh yeah, Mr. Plod. Yeah, he had a big belly, right?
Yeah. He's a real pig. He has an uneven relationship with Noddy, who he thinks drives too fast and engages in other unwarranted behavior. He has gone so far as to imprison Noddy at least once, threatened him with imprisonment on other occasions. His catchphrase is, "Stop in the name of the Plod."
Stop in the name of Plod. Man,
It's this show sounds relatively anti-cop. I feel like Mr. Noddy comes out in the intro and is like, "Fuck 12." Mr. Plod comes out and like chases him around.
Yeah,
Is that the theme of the show?
Mr. Plod was I was just like Daniel Tiger, but I guess with more racism and Big Ears. Like even Big Ears isn't like a particularly nice name for someone. Like
The show is mean-spirited.
and Noddy was, I think he nodded. I think he was like a toy, like maybe a Jack in the Box. That's why he was nodding. You know what I mean? Was he was Noddy. Tessie Bear. I'm just looking through all there was Miss Tubby Bear. They
Making
all
fun of fat people. This show is so mean, dude.
Yeah, Sammy Sailor has like the sort of red-cheeked glow of like a 40-year alcoholic. You know what I mean? Like I love that. Like there's a bunch of like all this. It was all stop motion as well. These were all like little, stop motion things. Like there's an era of like British children's stuff which is just deeply fucked. Like somebody needs to make like a video game with the aesthetic of Bagpuss or something. Bagpuss was. Have you ever seen Bagpuss?
Wait, it's called Bag. Was it?
Bagpuss, man.
Okay.
Yeah, bagpuss.
That sounds reasonable.
I heard-
bagpuss into Google Images. Just do it one time and tell me that's not the cutest fucking thing you've ever seen. Safe search off.
Safe search on. Okay, it's cute, but it's cute in the way that I feel like I would have found this in like a riverbed. I feel like this is a discarded toy, not the star of a television show.
Yeah, I think that was literally the.
Is that the vibe?
I think so. I think that was the bagpuss. Yeah, bagpuss is a lot of. Yeah, there was a little talking bird called Professor Yaffle. There was these weird mice that lived on a. All right, we should probably talk about video games. Hello, and welcome to Noclip. Thank you to Ryson for getting us on that fucking tangent. We played a lot of video games this week, it turns out. I played a lot of video games over not over the weekend, but when I got back from camping. Went off camping in the Russian River. Tried to evade the heat wave here by being close to a river I could dunk myself in, which was a good time. Who wants to go first? I feel like me and Frank have got sort of the murderer's row here, as it were. Considering we just put up the Vampires Survivors documentary, I want to hear a little bit about Halls of Torment. What is that, Frank?
So Halls of Torment, I think this came out in May, but I only heard about it this week from 3 different friends. So I don't know if it's like suddenly exploding or I've just been naive to it. This game is Vampire Survivors meets Diablo. So it's only $5. It's very much of what is the genre? Survivors like? I don't know. But it is basically an isometric Vampire Survivors. You pick your class.
Oh.
You start in a dungeon. It has very much like Diablo 2 or Diablo 1 PS1 graphics. So it's an evolution. So because Vampire Survivors is like beautiful pixel art or kind of crusty pixel art. And then Halls of Torment is crusty, beautiful, low poly, like PlayStation art.
He's choking. He loves it so much he's choking. It actually, does it have like dynamic lighting or something? Because the screenshots on the Steam page make it look like you said, it's kind of crusty looking characters, but the light is doing a lot of the work.
It looks pretty good. It also kind of reminds me of, I mean, it's not as colorful, but it also reminds me of like Gauntlet Legends, just that kind of late 90s. But it's very good. It's again similar to Vampire Survivors, where it's you can even turn on like auto aiming and auto shooting, so you don't have to be as focused with doing all your actions.
Oh, so it's not like Vampire Survivors in that way. You actually are deciding to like.
Yeah.
Do you pick your spells or?
So every time you play, it's the same way you unlock stuff in Vampire Survivors is when you do an achievement, you unlock more features of the game, and every level is giving you more stuff. So at first you just have a swordsman and he attacks in like a cone direction. Later you get like an archer who can do long range. You get a cleric who can attack with magic. You get someone with a flamethrower, which has been my favorite, which is like close range but constant DPS. You also can change your equipment loadout. So there is loot, kind of like Diablo. When you kill bosses, sometimes they'll drop armor, and then you have to deliver that armor to this guy who will fish it out of the dungeon so you can equip it on future runs. So it has permanent progression like Vampire Survivors. It has the thing, too, you can spend your gold on upgrading your different stats. And then in addition to just doing your melee starting attack.
Man, look, he's lost. It's just he's getting choked up. He just loves this game so much. Halls of Torment. Take a break there, Frank. I should mention
it's tormenting him.
It is exactly. It's like Throat of Torment right now for Frank. What happened, man? Were you like? I
don't know. It's extremely hot. Like it's so miserable. It's so miserable in my room.
In SoCal. What's the temperature in LA right now?
I don't know. Right now it's
Orange
80.
County?
It's right.
I'm gonna look it up. Orange County temperature. He might be having a heat stroke literally live. This is why you tune into the podcast, folks. Currently it's 86 Fahrenheit, which is 30 degrees centigrade. And it's only gonna get warmer.
I think the Vampire Survivors devs are pumping poisonous gas into
That's what
Frank's
it is.
room
That's what
in
it
an
is.
attempt to stop him from talking about a new competitor in the
Luca
field.
Galante. He's a nice guy on the internet.
That's why he didn't want to show his face.
That's why he didn't want to
show his face.
He's outside your house right now, pumping carbon
You
monoxide.
wouldn't even know because you've never seen his face.
Worth mentioning that this is a Vampire Survivors game and that there are hordes of people coming towards you at all times, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all that shit.
And then every 7 minutes, there's like a new boss that will come and attack you. When you kill those bosses, they drop like scrolls that give you spells. So that's where you'll get your automatic magic abilities. I can't.
Auto magic is good. Oh, yeah. Take it off. Sit back, dude. Get a glass of water. Is it literally so hot that you're like? Yeah, all right. Take your time. It's a good thing I've got like 58 games to talk about, to be honest.
I got some weird shit to talk about too, so don't worry about
well,
it.
Frank is hopefully not dying off camera. Hopefully he's taking care of himself. I want to talk to you a little bit about a game called The Looker.
Okay, that's very evocative.
It is. The Looker is Frank. Just you just hang out there and sort yourself out. He's got a lozenge. He's doing his thing. Just mute your mic and hang out there, dude. The Looker is a game. I don't know why I came across. I think Steam might have just put it in front of my face. The Looker is a piss take of The Witness, basically.
Oh, all right.
If you look at the Steam page for The Looker, it has the screenshots look like The Witness. The logo design looks like The Witness. It is a free game, and it has 11,000 reviews, and it's at overwhelmingly positive. It came out June of last year, but I completely missed it. You can complete it in about 50 minutes, and it is... I started being like, oh, great, it's going to be like some shovelware derivative thing. It's actually very funny and very smart. I subsequently read an interview with the developer after the fact, and it's not that I was wondering, is this guy just taking the piss out of John Blow? Is this like, is this a game? Is this a The Witness is pretentious and not that smart, so here is my version? But actually, seems like it's more of an ingest sort of deconstruction of the things that make The Witness really good. It's like a way to basically like game jam out a small version of The Witness without having to, while also like poking fun at it a little bit. So the way the puzzles in The Witness work, you might remember, is all of these like there's some variations to it, but it's a lot of like drawing lines between things and in certain rules being in the case. The lines in this are basically, you know, those puzzles you get when you're a kid at a restaurant and there's like the start and the end in the maze, and you have to draw the line between the start and the end, you know? Yeah. I'm not going crazy at those things.
Yeah.
It's basically those, except the ones at the start are literally just like start and end. Like they're so simple to do. You just go, you draw a line from the start to the end. And then they keep doing different versions of these. There's audio logs like there is in The Witness, but they're all like very funny. Like one of them sounds like it's this like, you know, classical theology about, you know, religion or whatever, and then it ends up being like a car insurance commercial that plays out. Like it's a lot of stuff like that. And there's not much really more to say about it. I actually really enjoyed it. I think it's very smart. It has a very funny, it's got a good ending. It's some of the puzzles I got stuck on. I just looked up a YouTube video of somebody completing it and just got past them because I couldn't be arsed trying to, because in The Witness, if you can't do a puzzle, you just go off and do a puzzle somewhere else, but this game's pretty small, so I just rushed through it. But yes, The Looker I would recommend. Will that be something
That's interesting. Yeah, so it's more of a send up of kind of like the genre, like Talos principles and The Witness, and games where you're going around doing puzzles and getting audio logs that are like, you know, Socrates said that the man's spirit was like a balloon.
Yeah, from like a level design standpoint, I think it's earnest because it's trying to do the thing that The Witness does, which is get you to play a game without ever telling you what you're meant to be doing, which is actually kind of tricky. But from an aesthetic point of view, it's complete rip-off. Like, intentionally, it's a complete, like, you know, send-up of it. But then, yeah, with the sort of, I don't know what you call that aesthetic. It's like sort of fancy garden. It's like rich person's garden or something. You know what I mean? That whole thing. It's definitely doing a lot of, like, taking the mick. There's one sequence in it which was genuinely terrifying, which was very weird. Like, there was, like, a 30-second part in that game where I was like, oh man, this just got weird. But yeah, I'd recommend it. If it's got an hour to burn, it's definitely better design than I was thinking going into it, and it's good fun. It's very silly.
That's cool. I finished Homebody the other night.
Oh, cool.
And, the puzzles in Homebody are nothing to laugh at. There are some serious puzzles in that game. In fact, a few people in the Noclip Discord were like, I love this game, but why are the puzzles so hard? Yeah, you played a little bit of Homebody, right?
I did play Homebody.
I gotta know what you think, because I finished it and I loved it.
I 100% understand why last week, whatever, the heat's coming.
Oh no,
it's coming.
Luca's outside.
It's like the fog. It's coming slowly making its way invisibly up to Northern California. I totally understand and appreciate why you couldn't really talk about that game much, and also why you kind of can't do a demo of it either, unless it's like just the start. It's like that game, and I almost don't want to talk about it in that way because, like you said, it's the thing that we could talk about that game is really interesting because you don't necessarily know what's going to happen, and I think that's what I really enjoy about it. It's good. I find it hard to talk about it without spoiling some of the stuff. Yeah. But there are reasons why that game is challenging to play sometimes. But it has a great atmosphere. And I think once the game started a bit for me, it clicked more. Like I think the intro kind of like sets up stuff, but then there's a lot of talking and things like that. It's not voiced or anything, and it feels a little bit like. But then I think once it settles into the actual game part of the game, it's a tough game. It's like in more ways than one, I think.
Yeah, it also, I feel like the intro atmosphere is it's kind of ambiguous because you don't really know, and again, I won't spoil anything, I swear to God. But the intro atmosphere feels kind of like it's tense and awkward, and people aren't really talking like people normally talk to each other. And so the first time you're playing it, and you kind of have no idea the tone of this game or anything. You're like, is the writing weird, or are these people just like they hate each other? You don't have the subtext for it. And then as it goes on and things get trippier and weirder and more kind of like abstract, it contextualizes sort of the social tension, both like diegetically and also sort of in a weird psychological, metaphysical way. But it's like, yeah, I could see how it would be a hard thing to get into. Also, like I said last week, the game gives you enough rope to hang yourself with. You have enough freedom to just go around talking to your friends and exhausting every dialogue option that's available at the beginning, and you totally do not need to. Yeah. And if you do, you'll end up being like, "So, do you like pizza?" And they're like, "Yeah, pizza's pretty good." And you're like, "What is this game about?"
Yeah, true. Yeah. It's it's in a way like a lot of modern games, like we talked about Dave the Diver weeks ago, are designed to constantly give you that gratification and dopamine hit. And Homebody is definitely a game that wants you to, it seems like at least a game that wants you to complete it, and then you will, kind of like Signalis, where it's not like a game that's like trying to make you really enjoy the first level. And, it's like, no. This is like, it's more like a movie that wants you to sit down and then experience the totality of it and then sort of come up with how you feel about it. Yes, I feel... I think I know why it's a hard game to recommend, because you kind of can't talk about it a bit.
I know. I feel bad because I can't imagine marketing a game where just talking about the core game mechanic is a spoiler in some capacity. It's tough. I mean, that is why I felt the need to champion it on the podcast last week, and I'm very heartened that a lot of people have reached out and said that they give it a shot and stuff, because I think it's probably going to end up being my favorite game this year. Nothing. Well, Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be
can't fuck a bear in Homebody. Well, I don't know. I haven't completed it. Maybe you can.
No spoilers. Maybe you can.
No spoilers. Maybe you can. Halls of Torment. Any final thoughts, Frank? Now that you are hopefully not dying in front of our very eyes.
I had auricular throat lodge, and I forgot to say it's great. It's Steam Deck. It's really great on Steam Deck. So again, last summer when I took a break and just chilled on my bed or couch and played Vampire Survivors for 30 hours until my eyes hurt, Halls of Torment has the same effect. It's very good. Like Vampire Survivors, levels are limited to 30 minutes, and after 30 minutes, a huge boss comes out. Every run feels rewarding. Every run you're unlocking new stuff. It's really cool. It's also kind of funny. This came out the same time of Diablo 4, and all the Steam reviews are saying I've been playing this more than Diablo 4.
Oh, funny.
So if you don't want to maybe take the plunge on Diablo 4, I don't want to spend full price for a game like that, for $5, Halls of Torment's great. If you liked Vampire Survivors, this hits that same itch, but it also evolves the genre a bit, where I feel like in the wake of Vampire Survivors, there was a ton of games that tried to chase that and were kind of lame. This one's pretty good. I think this one will stick. This one has a bit of a bigger team. I think there's like 9 people maybe on this one. It's still in early access. I think there's 5 levels right now.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I think it's really cool. It surprised me. I like it, and I'm always looking for fun stuff to play on Steam Deck. Like Dave the Diver, which was mentioned a few weeks ago. So yeah, Halls of Torment, I really like it. So it's good.
Halls of Torment. I love doing this. I feel like this happens every time we talk about these games. The team that made it is a studio called Chasing Carrots, which is just a terrific name, who have made a game called Space and Demons, which looks very much like Halls of Torment, but from the Vampire Survivors perspective. So more sort of less 45-degree isometric, more sort of 0 degree, I guess. They also made a game called Star Survivor, which looks like a twin-stick shooter. So it looks like they've got like priors in this, but also there was a Nightmare Survival bundle, which again, I think we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Jeremy was talking about sometimes different indie teams go in bundles together. And this art style, Jesus, type in 20 minutes till dawn. I
know this game.
Do you know this? It's $4. It came out on June 8th of this year. Maybe it was in early access before that. I don't know. But this art style, that's like a Jeremy Jane ass art style if ever I saw one.
Yeah, no, it's gorgeous pixel art. 20 Minutes Till Dawn, they did I think it's a solo indie dev, and they did a free version of it that was, I think it was like, I think it had a different name. I feel like the free version was 10 Minutes Till Dawn and the paid version was 20 Minutes Till Dawn. It was something like that. But it was an incredibly bold strategy as a solo indie dev to make it part of your game, give it away for free, make people like it. And I think it kind of went viral and a bunch of people streamed it on Twitch and stuff. And then be like, all right, you liked that? Here's the actual game. And it's whatever,
That's
$5
neat.
or something.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another one of these. What are we calling these things? Survival roguelites? Is that what they are?
Yeah,
Something like that?
I've seen people calling them bullet heavens.
Oh,
as
that's
opposed to
great.
bullet hell.
That's great. Oh, I like that a
because
lot.
you are the bullet hell.
100%. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just how many people you can, or zombies or vampires, whatever you can destroy.
Yeah,
that's cool. I like that. Yeah,
I love genre terms. I think it's like it's weird. I have conflicted feelings because I think genre terms, like with Homebody, it's so hard to place a label on it, and I think that turns people away. And I wish that. I personally have been trying to make the change where if I don't understand what a game is, I want to give it a shot and try to like experience it and not be like, it's one of those. Oh, it's an escape room game. Oh, it's like survival horror. Just like see it as its own kind of weird thing. Yeah, because like I don't know, if you think every Souls-like is the same game with a different skin on it, I feel like it's very reductive. It like distills your experience down to this one-dimensional thing that's just like, oh, this is Dark Souls with puppets. Oh, this is Dark Souls with samurai.
Oh, Dark Souls. I was like, what's Dark Souls with puppets? But I was like, oh yeah, Lies of P. You're right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally is. Have you seen that fucking Wonka trailer with Timothée Chalamet?
Oh,
dude,
no.
he looks like Gonzo in the Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh my god, he does. You're right. He's wearing the same
little hat
getup.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's. I'm not feeling it. I don't need to see that. Just let Dune 2 come out, and I don't need to see this weird. How do you do that? How do you even? I guess Gene Wilder is a hard one to follow up, but Johnny Depp's Michael Jackson impression. That was a weird movie. I got no segue there. Sea of Thieves. So the Sea of Thieves Monkey Island thing is coming out, I believe, tomorrow as we're recording this. So it should be up by the time this is out. So I decided to jump into Sea of Thieves. I played the Sea of Thieves. I sailed the Sea of Thieves. Back when that game was first announced, when it was in early access back then. I don't know if they ever reached out to us. Maybe they did at some stage, but I remember playing that when it first came out and being like, oh, this is really a game I need to play with other people. It's a bit rough around the edges. This is my first time playing it in God knows how long, 4 years or something like that. Sea of Thieves is terrific. Like the onboarding for it, just the fun of it. I love games where you're exploring. I'm just playing on my own at the moment. I played a bunch of Destiny 2 as well over the weekend for the first time in forever. That's a game that's kind of hard to play on your own a bit. I imagine the same thing might happen with Sea of Thieves, where if I'm in like battles, it's going to be hard to load the cannon myself and fire it while also, piloting the ship or whatever. But I jumped in because I wanted to kind of get through any tutorial stuff before the Monkey Island single player thing came out. But they have an Explorer mode, sort of like a free mode in Sea of Thieves, but they also have a single player thing that's already in there, like a single player little campaigny style thing you do. So I haven't jumped into that yet. I was mostly just faffing around on the islands. My ship got destroyed. A merman helped me get it back. Killed a bunch of pigs. Having a good time. The game does water and ocean, just like the climbing up to your crow's nest because the waves are too high to see where the island is, and then seeing the island like coming straight at you and like having to run back down and throw the anchor down. It's a lot of fun. I think that game is super cool. And I don't know, something about Dredge and Dave the Diver. I'm just in like an ocean mood or something at the moment. And I'm really enjoying it. But I mostly just want to jump in and see that Monkey Island stuff, which I don't know if you have to pay for it, because Sea of Thieves is free. It's either free or it's just Game Pass free. I don't know if the Monkey Island thing you got to pay for or not. I kind of think maybe you don't. Any idea?
I swear to God, I saw a free update when I was just looking for it. It will be released as 3 free monthly updates.
Oh, so the first part of it is coming out soon. Okay.
Yes,
That's
beginning
cool.
on July 20th, yeah.
July 20th. And they don't have any other dates, do they, for the other ones? I don't
I don't think so. I'll check.
Monthly though, so presumably near the end of the months. So that's
Yeah.
cool. I think if the plan was to get people to play Sea of Thieves, well done. You got one. Another game I played, which I was meaning to play, is Only Up, which is the meme game, which everyone has been playing, which temporarily was off Steam for a while because of some shithousery with stealing 3D assets, which I suspect there's a lot of that going on in this game. It feels like a game that was kind of thrown together a little bit, not to be super reductive about it, but this is the game where you are basically climbing up as high as you can get. What's the genre of this? So it's games like Getting Over It?
Yeah, with Bennett Foddy. Jump King is one of the big ones. Bread and Fred is a recent one. That's another similar thing. It's two penguins climbing a mountain.
Oh, Bread and Fred. And these are games where you're basically just trying to climb as high as you can and not fall the whole way back down again.
Yeah, because if you fall, you could be 90% of the way through this game, some of these games, and fall and lose it all in one fell swoop, which is that's how a lot of them have marketed as well. I know for like Jump King, there was a million compilations of like every big streamer. They're going like, no! And it's just cutting between them all screaming.
It is great stream fodder because it's like they could fall at any moment. It's like a Skinner box or something, right? Where it's like they could fall any moment, or they don't fall and they get to the top, and that's also like a big endorphin rush. This is an entire genre based off of Counter-Strike jump maps, right? Like that's basically what this is.
That's gotta be
right. Like I mean, every game had this. I feel like I've heard different terms for this. I think Halo maps had a different name for it. There's like, it's just this like subgenre, but it's sort of been codified in more recent memory. What I will say about Only Up, which I went into this way wanting to sort of be like, okay, I'll play it like a streamy game, like it's supposed to be this, difficult game. I'm gonna play it like a hard game, like Super Hexagon or something like that. That's like supposed to be difficult and hard. What I actually found is this game reminds me of my nightmares. So I have like somewhat recurring nightmares of being stuck somewhere high and just having to climb out of it. Like there's no way out of this scenario. You just have to walk across the like rope bridge, or you have to like, and like my nightmare version of this is like real fucked up versions. Like, oh yeah, we're just like stuck on the outside of this building that's like 2 miles up, and you have to like edge across like a 3-inch wide pathway for like 20 feet. Like just like absolute, sweaty palm, nervous legs shit. And the idea that there's no way out of this. Like you can't go back because back is the same. So you just got to keep going. And when I was playing this, I didn't even get that high. I was like up on like the first scary part, which is these like round pipes that are, it's just stuff suspended in air for like miles, basically. You're slowly going up and up and up and up. And your character can jump, but they can also sort of like mantle. Like if you hit the edge of anything, you basically mantle up. But the game is designed in a way to give you jumps that you think you can make and you can't, and to give you things that you think are flat but aren't. So it's always messing with you a little bit. And I cannot tell you, I've never experienced that in a game. Not since like maybe the first time I played Assassin's Creed and I was like climbing on tops of really tall buildings and trying not to fall down. I have never experienced that like palm sweaty sensation. I've kept going back for that reason. Like I'm edging. I'm not like running, jumping, trying to speed run it. I'm just like step by step, like, how do I do this? How do I get past this part? Da 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 da. And yeah, it like if for that alone, it totally works. Like the sense of height and scale and the way the camera operates and all that sort of stuff. It definitely gives me that vibe in a way that a lot of the 2D versions of these never did, because, you know, you can't look straight down, and like your eye does that thing where you like look down where you didn't want to look down.
Yeah.
You kind of look past the point you're supposed to be looking at and you go, oh fuck.
Yeah, I think these games are they're not really my cup of tea in terms of sitting and playing them, but I have a large appreciation for kind of what they do, because I think they're very they're very fundamentally gamey. You know what I mean? Like something like Super Mario is so simplistic in its mechanics that designing levels around it is more of the, you know, like he can jump and he can run and there's like these very simple mechanics, and then designing levels is kind of the work to make that fun.
Right.
I mean, obviously the jumping and running has to feel good first or whatever. But yeah, these games are very interesting to me because they're essentially like, what if you made a Mario level that just went up forever and you could fall and lose it all? And it's like, I don't know, they're just like they feel like arcade games to me or something. They're very punishing and hard and simple to understand, but very difficult. And there's something appealing to me about that. There's kind of like a Zen design philosophy where it cuts away all of this complexity. And it's just like, what if I just piled everything in the Unity asset store in a big ladder into the sky?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, there's the whole idea of these like deconstructed games, or these like very, very simplistic games. Like we don't tend to get them very much. Like conversely, I've been playing Destiny, which is a game that is so systemic. It's all about like missions and loops and how good the gun feels. And yeah, there's so many different like levels and layers to it. And what I've always liked about these games, and kind of what I liked about 90s gaming in general, was that, especially first person games, was that a lot of the pizzazz came from simple things like, oh, here's a different level, or oh, here's a different gun. Like, and just that alone has this sort of like domino effect as to how everyone plays the game. It's also the reason I've been enjoying Stunt Derby so much, is because similarly the cars just kind of drive and they feel nice to drive, and then we have the community making all these levels, and there are levels that just completely deconstruct the way you think about what you're supposed to do. But ultimately what you're doing is the same thing you're always doing. You're just driving, and then, you know, that's it. And that was cool about jump maps and like surf maps. It was just like taking the basic thing and, like you said, using level design to create something completely different. And I'm with you. I think one of the things that Only Up also does, and granted I've seen a lot of this from them subsequently watching videos on it, is that the biomes, let's say, the levels you reach, a lot of them have like different things going on. Like they're doing a lot of like messing with your expectations. And again, it's that level design which actually is the thing that gives the, I don't know, dynamicism to the game. It's not like, oh, you've unlocked a new ability, you know what I mean? Which kind of, in a lot of games, has become the way to show that progression.
I kind of feel like this is just a very subjective thing. So this is not a objective
opinions
crafting.
Only, Jeremy.
Objective hot take incoming. I think that I have given a lot of survival crafting games a good shot because they're good co-op. They're typically kind of like the most polished co-op games available the last few years to play with my friends, and most of my friends live 3,000 miles away.
Right.
So I kind of get this feeling that like something like Stunt Derby is kind of on the opposite end of the game design spectrum as something like Raft or Valheim, because my personal experience is that I don't derive a lot of pleasure from the gathering, and I don't derive a lot of pleasure from taking those elements and converting them into like my custom boat or like my custom Viking hall or whatever. And so for me, all of those things are kind of they're like frosting, you know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, so what is all of this frosting in support of? What's the center of this candy shell? And for me, I feel like I gave Raft a shot with some friends because I had a friend who was begging to play it for years and it was on sale, and I just hated it. Like I just felt like, and it's a game, I feel no shame talking down on it because it's made $200 million, so like people, the game clearly is, they're doing fine. I'm a flea on their back. But I don't know, I just feel like it's like you're like, okay, I've collected all the wood, I've collected all this, the plastic, I've like built the spear, I've got the boat, now what? And the now what is kind of just like using those kind of uninteresting combat mechanics to like go into a place that does have some, there's like interesting atmosphere and stuff like that, but there's no core. And Valheim similarly, once I had done enough of the dungeons to feel like they were all kind of the same building blocks dungeons with, I mean, it's procedurally generated. It just lacked like authorship. It felt like there was no core experience to me. It felt like it was a bunch of systems built around a hollow center. And I feel like something like Stunt Derby is kind of the opposite, where it's like the center is the thing, like the driving feels good. If you just had that car in a totally blank landscape, it would still feel good to drive. And then all of the design around it feels like the frosting, but there's something at the center for me that intrigues me. And yeah, I don't know. I've just been, every time I play a survival crafting game, I'm like, I feel like I'm just doing all my homework to like get something that never comes.
Well, that's why I liked Sons of the Forest a bit, because a bit more than a lot of those, because at least there was the central mystery of what's in all these little bunkers you keep finding, or like what's the deal with some of these weirdo, like, lady with 4 legs who walks up kind of thing, right? Is it ableist to call a lady with 4 legs weirdo? Considering there are no 4-legged people in reality, I don't know.
I think you're safe on that.
I think I'm good. Apologies if you've 4 legs out there. I feel like I also feel like the hollow shell existed with some of those games. Valheim for me tickled the same thing that like early World of Warcraft did for me, which was the discovery of, like, I didn't know about the different areas. You know what I mean? I didn't know about the dungeons. I knew nothing about that game when I was playing it. And every single time, like the first time I saw a troll was like, Jesus Christ, like this is, whereas like if you've watched a trailer for Valheim, you don't get any of that now. You know what I mean? Presumably because you've seen a lot of this and people are, those games are made for a lot, well, not made for, but a lot of people who play those games expect those games to have hundreds and thousands of hours of content in them. And like Valheim doesn't, because it's a small game made by a small amount of people. But God, the opening 2 months of my time with Valheim playing with my buddies is about the most fun I've had playing games in about 10 years. It was so good.
Yeah, no, the discovery in Valheim is unbelievably good. And like seeing all of the, I guess it's just one of those games there that like once I had the whole picture of what it was, I was a little like, okay, now there's nothing left for me, because peeling off all of the McDonald's Monopoly pieces and being like, I got Boardwalk, because there's like a snow biome over here. That like discovery
the bees are
was
happy.
the central. Yeah, making the bees happy. That was kind of like the core thing for me. And I just kind of wished that there was like a little, like a story or like something. Yeah, Raft kind of has that, like the Sons of the Forest. I just didn't click with it as much. So
yeah, it's a shame. I feel the same way about Valheim, but also like I got my money's worth from Valheim in a way. But I'm like you. I wish I wanted to love it even more. I wanted it to be the best one of those games I ever played, or one of the best games I ever played. Who knows? Maybe they'll get around to doing it. It looks like it's a long project for that team, and I definitely trust them to give it their best shot. Quickly, I want to mention one last game I played, Jagged Alliance 3. So we were talking about CRPGs a lot last week, and then Commandos came up. The Jagged Alliance series is right up there with Icewind Dale and fucking Planescape Torment and all these games that my eyes just glazed over whenever they were announced. I could not tell you anything about them. Jagged Alliance 2, I want to say, came out in like 1996 or something like that. Is it 1999? It was when Jagged Alliance 2 came out, and that was basically a Fallout-looking game with. And I don't know anything about this game, so please apologies if I sound like an absolute dumbass. But like Fallout mixed with like maybe classic XCOM, like UFO Defense, I guess, as it was known over here. XCOM Enemy Unknown, as it was known in Europe, but like in a way that is like it's freeform, like Fallout, and then when you're in combat, it goes turn-based. Jagged Alliance 3 is like that, but instead of being locked to isometric and having that 2D Fallout style camera control, it looks more like it has a 3D camera that can be moved around, kind of like Desperados 3, like another game that I've been talking about recently. I guess the way in which it's different to those games, Desperados 3 is probably the closest to it, but like the way in which this feels different is that like when you get into the combat, it feels like XCOM style combat where you have Overwatch, you have a certain amount of like points that you're able to spend with your crew of mercenaries, But in the lead up to that, kind of like they added in XCOM 2, maybe, I feel like, I can't remember when that one came out, but the way that they had it so that you could kind of set yourself up before they knew you were there. Jagged Alliance is a big map that you're just like clicking and they're running to the place and click and they run to the place like any one of these CRPGs. And then you can set your dudes up and stealth around and then decide to engage them, and then it's turn-based. The vibe is very different to a lot of these games. This was basically a send-up of like action movie tropes were the original Jagged Alliance games, from what I've learned and from what they literally tell you at the start of Jagged Alliance 3. They're like, this game is like about stereotypes, and like, you know, the modern game is going to be a little bit like that, so, you know, expect it kind of thing. And this is like that too. And what's funny is at the start of the level, basically somebody in like a country's dad has been kidnapped by some group of, internal war type thing. And you literally hire your team of mercenaries. And they're all like, they have weird names. Some of them are idiots. Some of them are like highly skilled mercs. They all cost different money. You have to do contract negotiations with them because they're like, oh, I'm not going to work for 3 days. When you go on a mission, it's not one individual mission. It's like 4 or 5 map tiles stuck together, and going to each one of them takes time, so that maybe 3 missions in, one of the mercenaries is like, I'm out of here. You only paid me for 4 days. I'm gone. And then your team is down. They all have different class specs. They all have different like weapons, abilities. You're going through the levels. There's so much going on. And it's super interesting. And I've never played a game like this. It kind of feels like a little bit of a lot of these types of games. And there's been a lot of like positive buzz around it since it got released July 14th. So like just at the end of last week. It's got 2,500 reviews on Steam. Very positive. It seemed to do well on reviews as well. And yeah, it's just like I never played a game like this. I've never played Jagged Alliance in the past, but it seems pretty neat.
This sounds cool. I mean, you got me with the pitch of like 80s action movie, like Stallone-esque action movie, but with kind of a like a Commandos meets XCOM thing going on. That's a really good elevator pitch.
Yeah, and the detail, the actual gameplay itself is like, I would say it's more, there's more depth to it than like XCOM, in that like XCOM has all the and I'm talking about the modern day XCOM ones, right? It has all the outside of mission stuff, right? The base building stuff. And I'm not sure how much of that there is because I'm still in the first like map, I guess, or mission or whatever you'd call it. But within each level, like they're all connected. Like you're shooting people, but then you're also like going to like a person and having a conversation with them, like in a CRPG. And then you go around, then there's another combat encounter and it's turn-based. And then at a certain point, you're like, oh, well, let's move to the next area. And you go back to like the mission map and click on the next tile in the world. And they're like, do, and they walk across and the time goes past. And then you load into a new map. And then it's that all over again. There's like story beats and there's combat encounters. And you're collecting stuff and changing your weapons. And then like, there's also like, you meet characters and you can decide to like, you know, CRPG style, like kill them or befriend them, or, you know, one of your characters is really good at intimidating and you get them to give you information, and then 4 map tiles later that actually becomes useful. Like there's a lot of like CRPG stuff going on in a game that plays like XCOM, right? Like, and that's super interesting. Like, and I'd never seen that before. So yeah, I don't know if Fallout's a lot like that or not. I don't, because Fallout has turn-based combat, Fallout 1 and 2, but I've never really played those games. So in a way, it might be like that, but
yeah, it sounds like a more kind of systems-driven, like grander vision of that, because in the original Fallout games, it's very segmented, where you can, like, if you're traveling from point A to point B on the overworld, if you get into a combat encounter, it'll like stop you and zoom in like old Final Fantasy, and then you'll duke it out on a little grid of desert of whatever area you're at, or if you do combat like in a city, it like engages the combat in that city, but it's not like they're gonna chase you out of the city and then you know what I mean?
Yes, it's not the same. Yeah, it's not. It's like a different little world within a world. Whereas this is happening all in the same sort of 3D space, and that's really cool because you can like, you know, there are missions where like it's in a city and there's like a balcony, and you send someone into that building and try and get them to stealth up to the balcony so that they can get in that position, so that you can goad the enemy in one direction or flank them. Like there's so much like tactical variety in this. Like in XCOM, I feel like, you know, generally you would start at one part of the map and then the enemy was ahead of you, right? It was almost like NFL, you know what I mean? It was like encroaching into their territory and finding out who they are, where they are. Whereas in original XCOM back in the day, I always felt like the aliens were kind of all around your ship a little bit more when you came out in that isometric one. And in this one, you're encroaching into their world, but you can like stealth in behind enemy lines with like 2 of your guys. That maybe is also a way in which it's different to Fallout, right? Because in Fallout, you're only ever one character, I'm guessing, in Fallout 1 and 2.
Yeah, you have companions. I haven't played them in so long,
like
I
your
can't
dog
remember
and
if
stuff.
you control the companions or
Right.
not. It's been so long.
Whereas this is definitely like you have a squad of, you know, I've had 4 people on this. I think you could take fewer. I'm not sure. You could spend all your money, I think, on like a really good merc and not have any left for some of these guys are rubbish. Like some of them are like couldn't hit a fucking back door of a barn with a banjo, but like then there's another guy I hired who's like just like cold-blooded killer. He'll just like, there's one guy I have, anytime he gets shot at, just like drops to the floor and no one ever hits him. And then he's the first person who's like ready to hit people back. And it's cool. So when you're hitting them, you can aim for like legs, torso, arm, head. It'll let you know if they've got like armor. And then with each one of those shots, you can decide to spend more action points to increase your accuracy, which is very cool because it means
This game sounds awesome.
Yeah. So like if you're going for head, like I've had moments where I'm like, this guy sucks. He's a bad shot, but he's kind of close. I've either got 2 shots at like, imagine in XCOM where like you could have 2 shots at, I don't think this is a mechanic. Like I guess you could do a buff on some shots in XCOM that would increase your accuracy, but this on a shot by shot basis, you can just decide to be more accurate from more AP. And if you do that, like maybe it's like you can take 2 shots at like this accuracy, or you can just blow it all. You'll just try and get the most accurate possible shot and just go for it and see if it hits them. Yeah, it's neat. I'm into it.
That's awesome. It's also co-op.
And it's co-op. That's right. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Jagged
All
Alliance
I'm
3.
getting this the minute it goes on sale.
Go for $45 at the moment. So it's not even
That's not too bad.
it's not even full price, but this will be. Yeah, you're right. When this hits sales, it'll probably be like $30-$20 maybe.
Yeah.
It's a cool game. I'm excited to see what people think because I think it's slowly gathering a little bit of interest around it, and it's certain again like Sea of Thieves Monkey Island. It got me in. I'd never given a fucking. I have no way of saying anything except shit. I can't think of any. Never give
I thought you were gonna say rat's ass.
a rat's. There we go. I didn't even have a rat's ass about Jagged
That's a
Alliance.
real like northeast coast of the United States turn of phrase.
I like it. I'll take it. But I didn't know anything about this series. Just complete like eyes glazed over thing, but it's good. It's good shit. I'm really enjoying it.
Awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
Cool.
Jeremy,
Yes.
you have been playing games or playing music? Explain.
I got a cable that is a 3.5 millimeter, like a normal 1/8-inch headphone jack. That on the other end is a male XLR, and so now I can plug my Retroid into my mixer.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't really talk about this on the podcast because it's just kind of like something I do for myself. But I make a lot of music, and in fact, some of my music is in some of the Noclip docs.
yeah,
back in the
Rocket
day.
League doc opens with one of
Yeah.
your tracks. Yeah.
And so I've been making beats by when I play video games. I just plug into my mixer and I'll just like let Ableton run a recording because whatever. I can just delete it. It's not that much memory.
Right.
So I'll just let it run for like an hour, and then if there's a sound effect in game that's really good, then like especially if it's a menu, like if it's triggerable, so you can be like, bloop, 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 bloop. It's like playing games, it adds this whole dimension of sonic space to games where I'm like viscerally aware of how it sounds, especially because I've got it coming through the big speakers. And so I've been evolving my setup and like adding FX chains to it and like looping stuff and making beats out of video game noises. So I don't know. I was just I wanted to share because I thought it was like a fun kind of like, it's a weird different way to play video games where it suits my ADHD so well, where I'll like play a game and then I'll be like, oh, that would make a good beat, and then I'll just like pivot and like turn on the synthesizer. But I feel like Frank is a really good rapper. I don't know if people know that Frank raps, but Frank is like a fucking seriously good rapper and raps on his streams. I feel like, Frank, if you have what's a game that you really like the sonic texture of? Because I will try to make a beat for you.
The first thing that comes to mind is Final Fantasy with all the spell beats.
Okay.
Like, I mean, you could do like any 7, 6, even 10. Like, just do all the menu noises, and those are really good. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try to make you a little Nobuo Uematsu beat, and if it comes out good, you can rap on it.
Awesome.
How long would the beat be? Like, what? How long is a loop? Is it like 8 seconds or like 15 seconds or what? What do you do?
I mean, I could make like, typically the way I make beats is I will find sounds that I like and put them in a 4-bar loop, and then just kind of like find the right tempo for it, and then start mixing and matching sounds around it. And once I have kind of a 4-bar loop that I like, I'll start expanding that out, and then it's about like adding and taking away elements. So, you know, if the 4-bar loop is very full, then you dupe it and then pull out all the drums and see how it sounds with a very stripped down sound. And then maybe you add in a synthesizer, and just like kind of mixing and matching and building different elements so that everything has like a little bit of the other segments in it, and it kind of flows seamlessly. So so I could just make a beat that loops endlessly if Frank wants to freestyle for the rest of his life.
Stick it on a stream. That's the thing. Have you ever, because you freestyle a lot on your streams, and I'm always like, how the fuck is he doing this?
He's really good. You're really fucking good, dude.
You're really good at it. That seems like a totally different skill to like writing lyrics and singing them? Is it like a different expectation there?
It's because I have like this sounds like I have a background in improv. Like, I used to do comedy in improv, and I was mentored by someone who is a master improv comedian. Like, and so it's free form. It's just association. I just pull what's in my head, and like I will go endlessly. Like it's very fun and silly. And I think with freestyle, the same thing as writing. You do a lot, and then you'll have like one line or one subject that makes you laugh, and then you swim in that area for a while. So yeah, I mean, I really can do it endlessly, unless I have like a Halls of Torment moment and I choke. But no, as you just go, and I think it's like, for me, I'm very much like, I used to be very active in like internet comedy. Like, that was my whole thing. And so I have I also love Insane Clown Posse. So it's like, I have no worries about being a clown on the internet. So it's like, I'm not worried about like embarrassing myself. I'm just like trying to find something that makes me laugh. And so it's just like trying to find that nugget. And if I smile, if I crack myself up, then I know I'm doing a good job. So it's just kind of also like, again, thing with writing is just keep doing it. Ignore all the things that suck until you find the gold, and focus on the gold. So,
yeah, 100%. Dude, me and my friends used to sit around in college, and we would just like get high and rap and listen to beats, and it was so funny because it was like me and a couple of my best friends who we're not afraid to embarrass ourselves in front of each other, and we would just rap or like text each other raps. And it's so funny because most of it sucks, but when someone has like one good bar, everyone's like freaks out, like Biggie just like dropped bars in front. Like, it's fun just to hype each other up and just like do silly bullshit.
One of like the best books I've ever read was the Beastie Boys book, and they talk about like that was their process, like especially in the early 90s with Check Your Head. They had a warehouse in LA with like a skate ramp, a basketball court, and they would just like get high and just fuck around on music and spend all day just jamming. And then when they hit something like, oh, that's really good, they would write their raps together and then kind of take turns doing it. And it's just like, I don't know, it's very fun.
It's neat. Yeah,
it's awesome.
Chipping away at the marble, I guess, as a way of doing it.
Yeah. Also, I'm very fascinated by the connection between video games and hip hop. There are a lot of very good rappers who reference video games, and a lot of very good producers who sample video games.
Man, and there's a lot of games that where the aesthetic is entire. Like Street Fighter is a game that is 100% since like, I don't know, since Street Fighter 3 at least, maybe like is 100% that. You know what I mean? Like, what else? I guess like there's obviously ones like Def Jam Icon and stuff like that, but NBA Jam, but that's more just basketball. But yeah, Hi-Fi Rush, I feel.
Yeah, true.
Oh yeah, like Jet Set Radio Future.
Right.
Two of the Beastie Boys consulted on the soundtrack for
Oh, you're
that.
kidding?
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah. They had like a
that's
whole
so
side
cool.
project, and part of the reason why Future hasn't come out is like the rights ownership of all that stuff is so split across. But yeah,
Kingpin Life of Crime.
yeah.
Good old Cypress Hill. Checkmate, fool. It's good shit.
I wanna interview. I wonder if this would be a good crew video to just like hit up like JPEG Mafia or someone who references video games a lot and
Right.
samples them a lot, and then just interview them about video games for a while. I think it'd be like you guys saw Digging in the Carts, right? The doc series that
God,
was
it's been
like
so
a
long.
decade ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like one of my favorite things ever, and it's just it's a doc series of just people like flying a Lotus, being like, yeah, I used to play, Street Fighter, and then talking about like a lot of those people have an insane respect for a lot of the people who do video game music, and I feel like that's one of those things where if you're not an active consumer of video game music, it is kind of like background texture. But if you sit down and you put on like I that's what I listen to when I work is just like JRPG soundtracks, like Yoko Shimomura's soundtrack for Super Mario RPG. I've probably heard more than like any Wu-Tang album.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. I don't know. Also, music is one of those things that's hard to fit into our documentaries because it feels kind of, it feels like it's out of step with a lot of the other processes in dev or something. Like it feels like it's this separate kind of wing of its own where like a mad genius goes off and makes all the noises and then they put them on the game.
Yeah, it's one of the things we've always had trouble with is like, how do you noodle in that area as an outsider? How do you like get somebody who does that process on their own to vocalize it? Because they probably don't vocalize it. Maybe like we had it a bit with the actors where we were like asking them about the process of acting and like getting them to like tell us like technical terms and like ways in which they approach the work and that sort of stuff. Generally with the game stuff, because it's so collaborative, you can tell like, oh, I worked on this part and then I worked with this person to get this bit done and then this went over here and then this went over here. But because the audio people, the music people in particular, are just these like painters, you know what I mean? It's like asking someone, you can ask them about how they paint, but like it doesn't really explain like the skill they have for knowing when something sounds or looks good, you know? It's very difficult to get like if we talk to the artist, if we talk to Gen Z about her drawing, she'll talk about things like, oh, we needed to use it, the character needed to look like this and this, and I had this restriction and I needed to do this, so this is what I drew. It's never this is how I drew this, because like she probably can't even talk about how she drew it. She's just like, well, this is just how I draw because I learned this style and I like this artist and I just did it. You know what I mean? I just did the thing. Like I made the music. Like it's hard to, I don't know, like communicate that, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And it also ends up being kind of like you can, like you said, you can talk about it kind of reverse engineering the needs of the game. And that is, that conversation is relevant to the game development process. But to talk about the process of writing music feels like it's pretty separate from video games or something. Like if we were to talk to Mick Gordon and he's like, well, first I sit down and I have like a cup of coffee and then I think about like texture, and I just feel like it's an interesting conversation, but it feels like such an aside from talking about things like level design and talking about development. I don't know. In a way, it almost could be its own documentary that is like a separate adjunct piece or something.
Like how difficult, because also like it's different as well, where people who experience music in games, they're experiencing the emotional like denouement of the whole creative process of that music being made, unlike art and gameplay and stuff where they're experiencing the mechanisms of it, and so they're familiar with the mechanisms of it. They're not familiar with the mechanisms of how the game was made or how the music was made. It's really telling to me that like some of the best like behind the scenes on music that has come out in the past couple of years has been some of the Hans Zimmer related videos about like how he produces stuff like the Dune soundtrack and things like that. And in all of those, what he does is he talks about the overall thing and then he goes and talks to the musicians about how they added it. So the game dev version of that is you get them to talk about the sample library that they use. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work. It doesn't have the same. Yeah, I think we did something where maybe it was in the Obsidian one or Bethesda maybe where we talked about how stuff was orchestrated. I guess we did it with Hades, I guess.
Yeah.
a little bit. But yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's something that as someone who makes music, I would like to get better at talking to other people about the process of making music and sound effects for games and doing sound design.
Yeah.
Because I just think it's like it is a difficult thing to strike a balance with. It's also one of those things that the more technical you get with it, it may be kind of more representative of the process, but alienate a lot of lay people in the process.
Yeah.
Where if they're like, yeah, you know, I'm a big fan of like C minor, and then instantly like 80% of the audience is like, I don't fucking care. Like, I don't care what notes you use, dude. I just want to, you know what I mean? And then if you get away from the technical side, then it's like, I wanted to like make the player feel like sassy, and it's like, okay, it's like it's hard to have a conversation off the back of that, I guess.
Yeah, totally. You were talking about digging in the carts and all this old media stuff, and it reminded me a little bit of so in one of the boxes with the tapes, I found like a slightly hidden compartment which had maybe like, I don't know, 40 to 60 press kits. So CDs and DVDs with just like press assets from various E3s that were, you know, full of goodies, right? And like I got a CD drive in from Amazon, a DVD CD drive, external USB thing, just like maybe 20 minutes before we went live in the podcast, maybe 10 minutes before. And I only got to put one in. And I was like, what are these assets going to be? Is it going to be like video files? Is it going to be DVDs that play like DVDs? So I'll have to actually capture that video. It won't be like a file I can get. The first one I put in opens with a Macromedia Flash menu. Like, holy shit. Like, how do we copy this? Do I have to make an ISO of it? It also had, really annoyingly, some sections in there that were like, you click on it and then it's like images, movie file, and it's like a Windows Media Player from 1999 fucking logo. Documentation, it's like the Word doc. And some of the stuff is on the discs and a lot of it links to websites. And it's just really annoying. The most annoying one is there's 3 games on there that just go, oh, visit this website for the press kits, and it brings you to a URL that are all dead. And the 3 games are World of Warcraft, Half-Life 2, and StarCraft Ghost.
Oh my god.
Like the cancelled
That's amazing.
StarCraft game. So I went from like the highs and lows of this preservation stuff. I am digging in my own carts over here. But we'll get some more of that stuff up. We have the Sony 2006 press conference as well to go up, which should be pretty cool. The last game on the list here is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Frank Howley, if you still have the use of your lungs,
Yeah.
Is this the first time you played this game? Or?
It's so funny. This is the Fallout New Vegas situation where when I was going through all my old games and achievement lists, I was just looking at like, where are all my gaps? What are games that I stopped playing for whatever reason? So Symphony of the Night, I neglected when it was on PlayStation. I just never played it. And then when it was released on Xbox 360 on Xbox Live Arcade, like in 2010, again, maybe the same year as Fallout New Vegas when I was in college, and just wasn't that focused on gaming. I played the first half of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So you do the whole castle, which maybe takes like 10 hours. You beat it, and then there's like, for me, it was a twist ending where the castle goes inverted, and now do it all over again, and it's harder. Right. I think back then I was like, no, I'm done with this game. But again, I've been watching all the Action Button Tim Rogers videos. It's why I also played L.A. Noire. Tim Rogers also said he's going to be covering Castlevania Rondo of Blood. So I'm like,
cool.
let me study Castlevania. And so, because there's so many Castlevania games I want to play, and just in the last few years, Konami, it's still Konami, has been very proactive about putting these collections up. So there's a Castlevania DS collection a few years ago or a year ago. They put up Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood as one collection on PlayStation Network. And so I grabbed that. And again, this sounds so like silly, but guys, Castlevania Symphony of the Night's really good. But like the pixel art is amazing. The music is amazing. I think also I wanted to play Castlevania Symphony of the Night after doing so much gameplay capture for Vampire Survivors.
Oh, yeah.
Because so many of the items are directly from Castlevania, like the Bible, the Holy Water, things like that. And it looks great playing it nowadays on like the TV in its original aspect ratio. I feel like when I played it on 360, I think I played it widescreen. It didn't preserve it. It looks so nice playing it like in the still 4:3. And yeah, I'm digging it. So I finished the first half of the game. So now I just started the inverted castle. So now for me, finally, so many years later, I now have brand new Symphony of the Night content to look forward to. So yeah, I'm excited to play more of it. And then after Symphony of the Night, I want to play so many of the other games. But yeah, they're great.
What's going on with us? It's so weird. I don't know what's happening. Maybe it says something about like modern. I don't know what it is, but we're all playing these old ass games.
For me, it's definitely burnout of trying to keep up with every single new game and just realizing like, man, I kind of like. There's also a degree older games were simpler, and this sounds very old man shouts at clouds, whatever. But it's like I don't know, like
my day.
Yeah, I don't know. Fallout New Vegas doesn't seem intimidating, even though there's so many quests. Or Symphony of the Night seems like I can manage that. Whereas I think all these other games like. I like Street Fighter 6, but there's the competitive edge where you're competing against a million other players. Or, I mean, even with Elden Ring, where it's like, oh, not all the tricks haven't been figured out yet. Whereas if I get stuck in Fallout New Vegas, there is immediately like, boom, 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 this is the answer. So I think I like playing games having that support system. But yeah, it also feels nice. I think what it is too, I might have mentioned this on the podcast, but months ago I finished a book called Think Again, which is about the science of like revisiting old like prejudices or thoughts you formed meant long ago and kind of reapproaching it, like giving a second take at everything. So I think I've been wanting to go back through my game library and like, why did I stop playing this game? It's been so long, I don't remember, and kind of playing everything with a new lens and appreciating it even more. Now that I'm older, I feel like I'm also way better at games than when I was a kid or a teenager, or have the patience, or also just can recognize when I'm truly lost and can go to a guide. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's been nice, like filling the gaps and giving second spins on genres. Like even last year, I fell in love with Gran Turismo 7, whereas I always hated those games.
Me
and
too.
There's
the
something,
VR.
There's something about its presentation and style that was just like, oh, this hits perfectly now. So I don't know. I kind of like giving games second or third chances. And I also, even with Steam, I love that they have the whole overall thing and then recent reviews. So you can see that when games actually get patched or when people come around on games. And I think that's the whole thing. Like even what we do here with Noclip or Tim Rogers or just the whole YouTube culture of just everyone is giving second, third, fourth, fifth appraisals of video games and checking how they fit in the zeitgeist. And even like on message boards, it's always fun seeing like, I don't know, people constantly going back to games. Like even now, I'm now like, oh, I kind of want to play more Monster Hunter, just randomly chasing what's interesting to me as opposed to, what's the game of the week now or whatever. It's just kind of playing games for myself, but then thank you also for allowing the platform for us to talk about and share. But yeah, it's kind of nice just, I don't know, letting go and just playing what I truly want to.
Yeah, play some Castlevania. How bad? No bad time apparently to do that. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about really quickly. It's not out yet, so I can't actually talk about it, but it definitely fits in the sort of like wheelhouse of some Noclip stuff, especially with game preservation. There's this very bizarre collection of like retro games coming to Xbox and also coming to PC, but I think it's only coming to PC via their own like system. I think I'm gonna check if it's on Steam. No, it looks like it might also be coming to Steam. So it's called the Antstream Arcade, ANTSTREAM. If you go to Antstream.com, you'll find it. And it is a collection of 1,470 games. 201 of them are Amiga games, which you'll be able to play through some sort of emulation thing that is legal. I don't know what the fuck this thing is. I think there are two ways to buy it. It is, I forget exactly how. I think one of them is like a year-long access to the library for like $30, or you can pay $60 or $70 for like lifetime access to the library. So you're basically just buying the game, I guess. But whatever is in this library might change, I guess, because of different deals or legal things. I don't know. This is especially cool if there's some specific stuff here, which is so Amiga for me is like really big. So there's 201 Amiga games on it, 35 Amstrad games, 293 arcade games, 28 Atari 8-bit, 26 Atari 2600 games, 11 Atari 7800 games, 358 Commodore 64 games. There's 5 DOS games in there, which is a bit weird. Data Tentacle, Full Throttle. I'm not sure if these are games that are in the public domain now or something. I have no idea. There's a couple of Game Boy games, Lynx, Genesis, MSX, NES. There's 2 PS1 games, 40 Winks and Loaded. It's quite funny. Some SNES stuff, a lot of ZX Spectrum stuff, 351 games there, and a couple of others as well. But it seems mostly Commodore 64, Speccy, and Amiga, I would say. and then I guess the arcade games as well. But yeah, I don't know how the emulation is. This thing might run like crap. I have no idea, but it's out. It should be out by the time this podcast is up. I think it's out tomorrow, Thursday the 20th, as we're recording this. I'm definitely going to check it out and see what the deal is with it, but I thought I'd mention it. Seems pretty crazy.
The the trailer on the Steam page for this is it says 7000 BC, and there's a caveman, and he's carving something into a wall.
My God.
And then you skip ahead, and the camera pulls out, and he's drawing the original Space Invader
Oh.
enemy on the cave wall.
This is insane.
Which is actually, I gotta give it to them. That's a really good trailer.
Wow. If this works
That's
on deck as
unbelievable.
well, that would be pretty cool. It looks like it works on mobile maybe as well. I'm not sure. They have an Xbox pad here. And then it cuts to a weird old... Do you see this businessman at the end of it who's playing on his MacBook and he's like old? Man.
Oh, yeah.
Just in case you didn't feel old enough.
That's actually a really sad image. He
It
looks really
is.
sad. He looks like he just finished a meeting where he like closed a $2 million deal and it didn't make him feel anything. And now he's revisiting his childhood in an attempt to feel anything at all.
I need to play some Double Dragon.
Just cut me. I need to feel something. I
Exactly.
need to play some root beer tapper.
Yeah, so I guess check that out. One more time, it is called the Antstream Arcade. No idea why it's
What's
called
with the
that.
name?
The
Yeah.
company's probably called Antstream or something, and they just...
Oh yeah, Antstream Limited is
there you
the
go.
okay.
Who knows? Like fucking... What was it? What was that fear game? Trepang?
Oh, Trepang.
They're just Trepang Studios, which I found quite funny. That's the podcast, folks. Thank you all for hanging out. Go check out our Vampire Survivors documentary. Awesome work by Jesse Garasha and Frank Howley on that one as well. So people seem to really enjoying that documentary and our beautiful puppet, Luca. Like I said, more tape stuff coming. We will be at PAX West on Saturday, September 2nd at 2:30 p.m. in the Monarch Theatre. That is Saturday, September 2nd, 2:30 at PAX West in the Monarch Theatre. I'll bring some tape stuff. I might be on the way back from a Euro trip, so we might have some exclusives as well. Be really delighted to hang out and see everyone. And yeah, I'm going to bring some... I think I've still got some Summer Jam lanyards and stickers and stuff. I'll bring some of those so we can hand out some of those things as well. If you'd like to support all of our work, our tape reservation project, the podcast, our documentaries, Noclip crew and loads more, get access to a bunch of exclusive videos and loads more, head over to patreon.com/Noclip and help us out. We have a big anniversary coming up as well, year 7 coming up in September. And excited to do some announcements then too. Plenty of work going on here in the background. Dwarf Fortress and the Burger King documentary in production. Frank is going to be filming some copies of Sneak King this weekend, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. My friend Leroy, who's also done hardcore wrestling, but
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
4,000 copies of Sneak King. Excited to talk to him.
Terrific. Play everyone, Frank. It's real journalism right there. All right, let's wrap it up. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Noclip podcast. See you.